Welcome, everyone. Sorry, we're running a little bit behind tonight. We had some technical difficulties. It's just the way these things go sometimes. My name is Jordan Bain. My guest tonight is Bill Moss, and this podcast is called Unveiling. Tonight, we're going to be discussing getting things done, but not maybe from the perspective that you might be used to. We're not just going to be talking about, tips and techniques for being a more productive human being, but rather, as we do on this podcast, discussing the mysteries and what that can mean for how we accomplish things in our lives. So again, my name is Jordan Bain. I'm a certified Modern Mystery School senior guide, international Kabbalah instructor, healer, teacher, ritual master, and many more things. Bill is also many of these things as well. He's a healer, soon to be teacher, and hopefully soon to be guide as well. That'll be super exciting. Yeah. And he lives down near West Reading, Pennsylvania. We met about 4 or 5 years ago now and been working together ever since. Yes. So welcome on the show. I'm going to introduce you. Dr. Bill is a chiropractor and he's an entrepreneur. He owns and operates Keystone Specific Chiropractic Center. And also in the last several years has established a healing center there called the Center at Keystone. And he's taught upper cervical specific chiropractic in multiple countries, 3 different continents, and also has established practices both here in the US and also in Europe. When Bill began this work with the Modern Mystery School, he really had no desire to practice, teach, or spread these ancient healing tools. And now he's growing and unifying communities throughout the Northeast. Through this path, he's come to know and understand his purpose to serve both his community and humanity. So thanks for being here. This is going to be fun. I was saying to you before the show, I kind of want some of your secrets on how you accomplish things in your life. So I'm bringing you on a little bit selfishly to be like, well, I want to learn, and maybe everyone watching can learn as well.
Well, I was honored to hear that going into this podcast, because you're my guide anyway. So I really appreciate being on here. Thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're always learning. So I have lots to learn from you as well. You're, of all the people that I've met in my life, you're probably in like the top 5 or 10 of people who are really able to seize the day, harness both the circumstances around them, your personal will, the goodness in your heart, and take positive actions every single day, or at least from what I can see, very consistently. And that's really unique. I don't see a lot of people who I know able to blend metaphysics, spirituality, a truly good heart, service to the world, business, family, physical health and exercise, like all these different areas of life. And you're someone who's really able to walk these different paths. And sometimes I'm scratching my head, like, how come we aren't all a little bit more like Bill Moss in terms of our lives? Why do we struggle to get things done? Why do we struggle as human beings to really make a big impact? Why do we struggle to be good people? Why do we struggle to serve other people? Like, it's, all the great masters that have walked the earth have always said, the way to, whatever you call it, heaven or the light or spirituality or love or goodness is to serve.
Yeah.
Why is that so hard for people? What's so difficult about that? And so I not that you and I have these answers, but we have answers that we've found for ourselves. And on this show, I want to hear from you some of your answers and how you've gotten here. So that's kind of what this is all about tonight.
Well,
is there anything you want to say in response to that before we even go into the questions?
Yeah, well, I think it's, I'm by trade, one of the things I studied a lot before I even hit the mystery school. I think a lot of people that end up on a spiritual path maybe are also running a parallel self-development type of path, either if that's on their own or through certain programs. And one of the trainings I actually had before I got on the spiritual path was through Gallup and Strength Finder, and so some coaching through there. And just there's some fascinating statistics that, Gallup are the people that keep all the data and the polls and the understanding of, it's almost like the technical way of knowing thyself, right? Strength Finder is identifying what you're good at and leveraging that. So I was drawn to that immediately because one of the things I found, my top strength is maximizer, which is like the idea that I always love good to great, good to great. I'm always assessing different situations as good to great. But one of the things, more
Mhm.
importantly, why is getting stuff done so important to people? And why do we not accomplish it? One of the maybe explanations of the things that have been studied is people aren't really disciplined. Like discipline is in most people's bottom five in their talents. And that's why, like,
Mm.
nutrition programs and diet and exercise and all of these self-help things exist because we don't have a lot of discipline. And one of the things or what you said in the intro that really hit me was I've like started to flip that. This is more spiritual progression than like, oh, pre-Bill came up with this, pre-spiritual Bill knew this stuff, but like the
Mm.
will kind of supersedes that, right? You need it
Mhm.
before you actually have the discipline, where people think you need the discipline to have the thing. And for me, that's like a much stronger principle for myself now, because I think it's frustrating to a lot of people when they don't understand that by nature we aren't those things. We're distracted, we're busy, we're occupied, and we aren't those things. So that's part of knowing yourself as like, what are our weaknesses? Well, if you're watching this, 80% of the people are pretty much not disciplined. So
Right.
then we have to rely on other gifts to kind of get there. So I think I've always been interested in knowing myself from a very long time. I think I just make decisions sometimes faster than other people out there, and that's resulted in
Mm.
maybe more consistent or more aggressive production, I guess you could say, along the way. So that's kind of what I've seen.
Cool. I mean, I think when we were talking about getting things done, it's always worthy of examination as to what do we mean by accomplishment. So
Yeah.
can you say more about what accomplishment means to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that changed. I think a lot of times I was
Mm.
still able to accomplish stuff, but it was for other people's gains or for other people's success and not my own compass. That
Mm.
we talk a lot in mystery school work about what's your compass, which really comes down to joy. But even understanding like the difference between what joy is and happiness, and you've really taught how happiness is much more fleeting as a concept of deep down joy. So one of the things that brings me joy is to continue to make things better. And what I mean by that is you can see that in probably every time you come to Pennsylvania, like even just from the center you've taught in, like I'm always tweaking things to make it a little bit better, a little bit more efficient, putting a little bit more love in, adding some more joy to it. And I do that kind of with my own life. And for me, like that is the accomplishment, is the continual pursuit of progress in making things more efficient, more loving, more compassionate, and really efficiency has allowed it to kind of continue to grow. So I think
Mm. Mhm.
from an accomplished standpoint, like I used to think people would often view somebody who wants to always make something better as not being content. And Obsessiveness Dave
Right.
was on last week, and he spoke a lot about the perfection being in the pursuit of perfection, not
Right.
just in like the arrival. And I think for some time I actually thought it was weird for me to, why do I always want to do this? Why do I always continue to want to make myself better? Because that could be easily a problem in someone's relationship. Like you're just never satisfied with who you are. And it's like,
Mm.
that could be viewed as a bad thing, but that's just so natural to me. So I would say, like, as far as accomplishments concerned, to me is like, do I have joy in doing that in the area of life that I'm actually focused on? Am I
Mhm.
enjoying am I really finding joy in the foods I'm eating? Not from a attachment perspective, like I'm addicted to all this stuff, but is the work or the movement of my body, is it facilitating joy in all areas of my life, or is it just beating me down and wearing me down so I can't do other things? And am I
Mm.
creating a space where people are really healing, not just from like, what does it look like? We set energy. So like, how is the energy? How am I communicating? How am I presenting myself? And what's my energy like? I care about all of the elements in those in that setting, whatever setting it may be, in my home, in my family,
Mhm.
it's all important. And I think that's what really accomplishment is to me, is to continue to refine and define that for my journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It's something where when we can really hone in on, well, what is my accomplishment? And for you, being able to always improve things, always add more love, always make something better. That really can, I hope people watching this episode take notes.
Mhm.
And because everyone's different, but what you do, I can't really emphasize this enough. And there's no way to see the fruits in your life just from this podcast, right? People, like, they see you and they see a face and they hear your voice and they hear these words, and it's like, but they don't know you very well just through this podcast. But if people can see someone's life and they see the fruits of their life and what they're creating, it's worth taking notes on this kind of stuff. Awesome. that Dr. Bill is talking about, because it proofs really in the pudding in what actually comes out from this approach. So how do you approach decisions in your life when you have to make a decision? Like, tell us about that process.
Well, it's probably changed, but
good. That's progress.
Yeah, that's good. That's progress. But I would say one of the things, I'm not scared to make a big decision, but I think one of the practices that I've had for a long time is, I'll give you an example. I remember being at a conference with an organization that I was associated with, and somebody did a practice where they had everybody like take 2 minutes where they wrote down all the things that scared them, or maybe 5 minutes. Like, it was a long period. It felt like a long period of time. Mm-hmm. And I realized in this moment, I was the type of guy, because like I felt something in this activity that was really kind of profound. And I think it came from two of the people that were kind of running this practice. They walked away and they were like, I had nothing on my list. I'm like not afraid of anything. And I was just like, how are you not going deep enough to then you're not challenging yourself? I'm sitting there like running this through my head, because in that experience, what I did was I wrote the whole entire time. I just whatever it was, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, I wrote consistently, except I was the first person to, at the end of this, it was like, okay, well, now you're going to crumble it up and throw it away. And I was the first person to the trash can. So I in that exercise, I just was looking at it from all these angles. I'm like, okay, so am I really a person who's just always afraid of things? No, it's just I could acknowledge the fear within the decision and get to what's the baseline of what's the worst thing that could happen with this fear, and then I would make the decision to do it or not do it. And it doesn't own you at that point. At that level, it doesn't own you anymore. So I have made some pretty big decisions we've all made big decisions, but some riskier, quote, riskier business decisions. But as I've made those, it's given me strength and courage to make another one, to realize that process is working, right? It gave me the feedback along the way and the experience and wisdom to know how to do it again. And I think that's one of the practices that I didn't know I would really do. But then I really started to figure out I do it, because one of my old teachers, not from a spiritual perspective, I remember saying I don't have a process for public speaking. I considered myself a good public speaker, but I didn't have a process. And I go do a presentation and I felt like it was but I didn't take notes and write it out and make this great outline. And he's like, whether you do those steps or not, you have a process. You're just not aware of it. And I was like, oh, so we all have decision-making processes.
Right.
But we're not all aware of, and most of them aren't serving us probably. Right. But many of them aren't. And I feel like now with the blend of the spiritual essence, meditation gives you such a new barometer for your own awareness, so you can start to evaluate your processes, because when you become quiet, you can see it. And if you're busy all the time, you can never see those moments. So I really remember having this quiet space to actually see how I made some decisions, and it's really helped me along the way, very much so.
Interesting. So speaking of meditation and all this stuff, how did you get into this work? What was your and why? How did you get into it, and why did you get into it?
I don't think I knew why exactly when I got into it. How I got into it's easier. Sean Carey, a good friend of yours, acquaintance of mine, he introduced me to this whole modern mystery school world. And I was going to a conference in Denver, Well, first, backtrack that. Sean and I were like brothers who didn't know each other. We both attended a conference for like 3 years straight, except my 3 year period ended when his started. And
Mm,
everybody thought we were like best friends and knew each other. And they'd always like kind of talk about us together. And we
mm,
had never even met. I don't even know if we had a conversation. The first time we actually had a phone call, it was because someone recommended he talk to me about coaching. So we got on the phone. We met like one time, and then I was going to see him in a conference in Denver.
mm,
And I'm in the chiropractic world, and my chiropractic background wasn't a mechanistic view of chiropractic. Like I was reading the philosophy of chiropractic, looking at the self-healing capacity of the human body,
mm,
the spirit, the mind. Like I was curious about all of that, and that really drew me to this healing work because I had an experience that the medical community kind of failed me, and chiropractic really helped restore my health. So I didn't come through, I didn't have a lens in chiropractic that looked very much like a medical model, if you will.
mhm,
Anyway, but I didn't have any experience in like new age healing or healing work. I was trained in transcendental meditation prior to
mm,
Sean, and I had a religious Catholic background growing up, so I was attuned to spirituality, and obviously I wanted to go deeper. But that world's messy, and I didn't know what to do or where to go with any of it. Nor did I really
right.
feel like I wanted to. But Sean was like, "Hey," we called him Shaman Sean when we knew he did this. That was like his original nickname. So, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to life activate you in Denver." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, that sounds great." I think he had just learned how to do it. It was like a gift from him to me. And I remember that weekend. It was right at the beginning of the weekend. I remember like that weekend feeling just different. I couldn't put my finger on it. I remembered even to this day pieces of the experience. And I remember like a week or 2 weeks later, I was at a wedding in like San Diego. And I just felt like I was so funny. Like just the conversations I was with people, I just like felt fun and funny. And I just was like, I don't have as much, I had anxiety. I used to be an anxious person, like a whole mental health deal. We could probably talk about
Mm.
that the whole podcast. But I remember just like noticing something was different for me. Uh, and he kept, how Sean is, he just kept telling me like how I'm going to be like surrounded by angels when I'm speaking and people are going to listen and, like all this stuff. And I'm like, whatever, man, I don't even know what you're saying. And I really started to make these connections like literally 2 or 3 weeks after I was life activated. I was in Barcelona teaching, and I had an opportunity that showed up out of nowhere to help start a practice there. And I helped start one of the first upper cervical offices in Barcelona, Spain. And I was teaching all around the world. And like all of these opportunities came out. And I was like,
Mm,
I definitely for myself noticed the internal change. And every time I came up to Boston was around Sean, he learned something new. So he'd do it for me. Then I started paying him. And I was like the person who felt and internally saw the shifts. So I wanted more of it. And eventually I got through my own stuff and I ended up at Empower Thyself with you. But at that point, I wasn't like, oh, I see what's happening for myself. Therefore, I want to help serve other people in this capacity at
mhm,
all. That wasn't even on the radar. No one suggested it. No one had like a intuition to bring this to the table of Bill. You might want to like explore this as a healer. Like that
mm,
wasn't for me. So it was just this like slow. It wasn't that slow. It was like a year process to get initiated, and then after that, it just like each thing I did, I got closer to like what that really meant for me, what my purpose
mm,
was, what true joy even is, what being multidimensional means, what actually being productive and fulfilled looks like, what getting rid of stuff that maybe makes you look cool, what that actually means. Like, get rid of it. It doesn't serve you if it's dragging you as an anchor in a big ocean that you can go explore. So I really started to feel and see how service, as the service piece came through, started to support me even further than me like just receiving things for myself. So
mm,
in the bio, even when you were reading back to me, it definitely jumped out in the sense that like, and I tell my healing clients all the time this. I tell them all, I had no desire to like be a life activation practitioner. I had no desire to like have a healing center or bring Kabbalah to Pennsylvania or none of this,
mhm.
or potentially be a guide down the line. I just really didn't. And it just started to happen because I gave it a shot. So,
It's so interesting. And it's so cool as well. How would you say when you work with clients and also with yourself in doing this work, how do you apply this work to your life? And how do you see clients apply it to their lives? Or how do you, counsel your clients to apply it to their lives?
It's great. And we were talking to this a little bit about this before we got on, but I really relate it to, I almost refer to myself as a practical spiritualist, because I feel like I am a pretty practical, approachable person that, on the outside, maybe you see one thing, but then when you start to get to know me a little deeper, you realize that the depth is a lot greater. And I feel like with my clients, because I have a chiropractic practice and I have a healing practice that's below. Like I have this, you've been there, but it's 2 stories, and I do keep them separate in the essence. That I'm not bombarding my chiropractic clients with my healing work, and vice versa. I don't really bring up chiropractic ever unless they're asking me a question during healing work or meditation or anything like that. We'll extend I'll reach my hand across and like invite them in for meditation or something like that. But it's how I start to really bridge that gap is through my personal experiences, because I was saying to you, I watched you teach multiple times hosting Empower Thyself at our office. And I'm like, I don't have that spiritual background. I don't have all of these religious experiences, but I have Bill Moss's experiences, which look like, a competitive distance runner, a high school emotional support teacher, a father, a parent, a chiropractor, healer. Like that's been my playground and my hats that I've worn. So I have experiences. Oh, and by the way, I've gone through all these healing things. So maybe I should share my experiences within them. And that resonates with my people, because I probably to some degree resonate with my people. And I remember just like, I thought it was when I got back from Healers Academy, I remember being like, what am I going to do with this thing? What am I going to do with this wand? Like, I don't know. Like, who am I going to do this with? And I remember like in my first couple of clients, how natural that was. So I feel like when you're like, well, how do you do it? I think I was preparing forever with my communication, with my understanding of myself and healing, something that's a little abstract and making it more concrete or understandable. Because chiropractic's a little out there. And, I practice upper cervical chiropractic. So that means I adjust the top 2 bones of the spine and its relationship to the nervous system. And that helps heal all kinds of different things on a physical plane that I have to communicate and have done and have communicated for years. So I think it's challenged me to apply the same understanding of the world and how they see it to my healing clients. And I think that's really served me and helped me become more productive right from the get-go in this healing work. Because again, I wasn't like and you and I've talked about this, but the person that's like, I'm going to go to Healers Academy, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be a guide, I'm going to be like, they're usually met with all this stuff where I was like, I don't really know. I'm open to whatever. Here we go. And I think that openness has humbled me to actually learn stuff and really move. So
amazing. Yeah. I mean, when you see your clients, how do you notice their ongoing journey and the parallel with your journey? Like, what's the connection with your journey and your client's journey, and how this what is this journey that you're on with your clients? Like we're getting here at service, right? Like what is the essence of service to you? What is the essence of the journey that you're on, the journey that your clients are on? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it means the world to me when I look at what I like to do for people. And this is, there's always different types of people that bring things up for us, if you will, right? And I realize like the people that don't work in my chiropractic practice, in essence, are the ones that really do want to stay in their box. Meaning there's lots of people that have health conditions that are because they don't want to lose their health condition, right? Or let's put it this way, like they have an identity because they have the thing. And if they lost the thing and whatever condition XYZ, symptom XYZ, if they lost that, then what? And I've seen it happen. It's not everyone, where people start getting better and then I'm out. I don't want it. I don't. So it's even given me this
Mm-hmm.
perspective of like empathy, almost empathy for people. Like that's where that person
Mm-hmm.
is. That's where they are and who they are.
Right.
And though I don't necessarily love that, I like that's where they are. But with knowing what I've gone through, even my health journey, you know, like the first 22 years, I was a pretty sick person and I had some mental health issues, even from an anxiety perspective and just lots of challenges. And it got turned around by kind of a new paradigm and people just opening their mouth actually and talking to me. You know, I had a chiropractor who
Mm.
was just like, yeah, so you experience less anxiety being adjusted. Has anyone ever told you how that could be related? And I'm like, no. So he explained it, and I saw how things changed. It was like, um,
Mm.
you know, that was a big deal. I didn't have to keep going down that line, and I think we can do that for people. And then he was the same person who was like, hey, have you ever thought about being a chiropractor? When I was a teacher, and I was like, no. So I recognized the power of a few words in the right moment with people, but I also, I don't know how this question started, but the main thing I look for with people, or I find as part of my path to service, is helping people move from where they are. You know, like I
Mm.
don't like to stay stuck, and I want to help people, or I want to help myself continue to get better in multiple different regions and areas of my life. That I
Mm-hmm.
really want to help nudge people in that direction. And I have not experienced any tools that do that more efficiently and more powerfully than the ones in the mystery school. You know, and I say this because chiropractic is an amazing vehicle for so many different things, and people will have spiritual awakenings through chiropractic, but it isn't a vehicle for spiritual awakening. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
I think sometimes because we understand that the power that made the body heals the body, and like without interference, it works so well, then we try to take this tool and we may try to make it everything. And for myself, it's like, it's so many things. It's so many things. And I've seen so much transformation, but this is a different type of transformation we're talking about in this
Right.
type of progression. And some people are ready for it and some people aren't. But with having a chiropractic practice, I can start to see that with people. So from a service
Mm-hmm.
perspective, it's allowed me, the more people I work with, the more ways I can identify the readiness for more, if you will.
Absolutely. And then as people progress, what do you see in them as your clients?
Man,
Progressing in terms of the mystery school work and the
yeah.
healing work that you offer, that sort of stuff.
Well, like, what do I see in them at that
Yeah, like
point?
what do you see happening, like in terms of how they grow and change, and also that, you know, if you can relate that to our topic of like how do they
Yeah.
make decisions and like how do they change what they're doing in their lives?
Yeah, and from, you know, I'll be really specific. Like I don't know, I think it was Nick Penzarella. You know, he's part of the community. I
Yeah.
When I started like life activating certain people, and I'm like, man, they just like hop on this path, and then they're doing this thing and that thing, and he's like, well, Bill, look how you do things, and I was like, oh, all right, so maybe they're attracted to my
Mm.
energy in that way. But yeah, I have one friend. This is a crazy story. One close friend never thought he'd be into this. A life activated
Mm.
him, and then 2 weeks later, he's like a semi-pro bankrolled poker player, and he was at a casino. This is just a fun story to share. I'll share it. Like, but he went in and he was playing poker, and like they have this rare hand that if you have like four of a kind in it, you get beat. Like the rarity of that is crazy. And he won $250,000 in cash because he lost a certain hand right there, like two weeks after. So I have seen like
Mm.
monetary growth from people, but more interesting.
So random.
Isn't that random? But like it was really wild because he was like, I don't know, something happened, man, and that happened for me. That's not typical results. Typical things I see though are like career shifts. Like this career was not serving me. In fact, I'm employing two people. One being Cindy, who that was kind of her experience. She couldn't exist and she just didn't feel right in her line of work anymore. So she had to change. And that's happening with another person that I'm hiring in a couple months as well.
Mm.
I've seen relationships that are just like they die off because they're not the right thing for people.
Right.
New businesses start, new opportunities. Like, oh, I left this, or I was hoping to leave that, and then they got rid of me, and I found something new that worked out for me. So,
Right.
but in that, those aren't necessarily pleasant in the moment. You know, I've had people that are like, life activation didn't work because my life was hard. And it's like, yeah. And I watch you from afar, and all of these amazing new opportunities you developed as a result of having that shift in this world. So it's a fascinating place to be. I'm sure, I can see you smiling with this because you do this all the time.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious to watch, and how people do and don't make the connections or see what's really going on for themselves. And it's like, just kind of step back and watch people, see what they see in their lives and feel what they feel, and not necessarily understand. Like, I think it takes a certain maturity to see and understand what the work really is in its essence and what it's really doing for a person. It's not just like, someone was writing to me the other day, a new client, and she was saying, this work, it doesn't, she was like kind of writing off the work because she was saying it's not really for the masses. And I replied, I was like, you're right. It's not really just for everybody to walk in the door. It's only for people who really want to make a choice.
That's 100% true.
And that choice is like, some people are like, well, what do you mean by a choice? And I'm like, well, what choices are you facing in your life? Like, I don't mean the choice of just do the mystery school or not, but like you were bringing up relationships. It's like, if you're in a relationship that you don't enjoy, you need to make a choice.
Yeah.
Because why are you not enjoy? And someone might say, well, that's so simple. Don't make things that are relationships are the most complicated things in the world. Don't make it simple. And it's like, okay, I hear you. I get that. I mean, I was in a marriage for 15 years, and it's not simple.
Right.
There's nothing simple about that. It's not like it was good or it was bad.
Yeah.
It was many, many millions and billions of different things.
Right.
But it's like, at the end of the day, like, we're not, like, I left that marriage last year, and it's like, well, why? I'm not going to go talk about that on a podcast in all details, but it's like, there are things that didn't work on both sides. And it's like, you add these things up in life, and why are we making a decision if it's not like, we're making decisions every day. And in the case of like a relationship or a job or a place that we live, or someone, making like an ongoing health choice, whether you think you're making a choice or not, you're still making a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And that choice that you're making is creating the feelings and the life that you're in. So do you want to feel better? Do you want to live better? And if you don't, like, people are asking sometimes, well, what choice are you talking about? It's like, that's the choice. Whatever choice is in front of you is the choice. And do you want to progress? Do you want to improve that? And if the answer is no, like, great. Now everyone can say yes, right?
Yeah.
Most people, do you want to feel better? Of course I want to feel better.
Right.
Okay. Well, then that gets back to the whole reason we're doing this podcast. Like, what is accomplishment? What is discipline? How do you make decisions? How do you do the work? How do you serve yourself and others and humanity?
I just triggered, like, because I don't think I don't think you're saying it's simple, but that idea of like, when somebody, let's say they get life activated or they do a healing session, they're like, this relationship is over. It's not like that event precipitated 15 years of bliss and like knocked a great relationship out for the greater good. Typically what I'm seeing, right? It's almost like they've been playing out the thought and testing it forever. And this is like one of my new things that I'm noticing that I do. When you ask, like, how do I make decisions? Is I just start to throw a thought out and start to see how it keeps playing back. Because I think sometimes with the sheer speed that I make decisions, and I've tried to communicate this to my team, because sometimes it seems like I just made a split second decision. Like when you're talking about your relationship, that wasn't like, overnight. That's what I'm doing. It's like you've been testing this thought in the universe and how's that showing up. And I tell my team that because they'll see, like, I just make a decision and it seems like a fireball when it happens. But what I'm noticing is, like, I start assessing a situation. I start coming up with almost like an answer with the spark of like what it could be. And then I start testing it. I just start like kind of throwing it out and seeing what comes back. To see if that's the right decision to make. And that I now definitely feel is much more part of my process, where I'm not making as quick of decisions, but I'm coming in with this idea of like, and I'll just give you for instance, this new person I'm hiring, she texted me and was like, hey, I want to leave education. Are you hiring? And I was like, no, and I don't know. You might be too, like, I texted her back. I was like, let me put together my thoughts and get back to you. And I meant like the next day. And then I didn't for a month because I was like marinating over this idea of how would she fit into this whole experience. And in that period of time, this was only like 2 months ago, one of my employees stepped down, and I was already coming to the conclusion that I needed this staple position in my organization to continue to grow. And when that happened, I was like, okay, I'm going to make this decision. And now Cindy, who's like my operations person, let's put together a plan to help her fit into this, into our system. And we did that. And because Cindy kind of created her own position, we very naturally did this. And it was because I didn't just make a decision on my emotions or that. I started to like just play with the thought and see how it showed up. And that's something I'm doing much more with like Kabbalah. And the deeper I go with Kabbalah, the more, we make different vision boards and we come up with what we want to accomplish in this physical world and experience. And that for me has been something I realized, especially during this tree, I've been using, and it's been very fruitful, and I like it. Like, it brings me joy to just do that process because I've seen good fruits from it. Obviously, that's what we always say. Like, what are your fruits?
Right. And it's a very hermetic and Kabbalistic process as well, to test something with your thoughts and then see how those thoughts are going out again and again and again. And what is the mirror that's coming back? And, as initiates, we say we have many, many times more light, like orders of magnitude with each initiation, more light. And as we have that more light, things happen faster and faster and faster in our lives, so that we can start to really test things with our mind. And we can put them out there and have the results start to trickle back in before we fully commit to something, and have all that happen in a short period of time, sometimes as little as hours. To start getting real world feedback on how something's working, we can just put little thoughts out and start to have that bounce back to us. And for those watching who are not initiates in the mystery school, every human can do this, of course, and we all do this.
Totally.
But it becomes a really fast, really refined process as we go higher and higher in mystery school initiations, of being able to make that happen really quickly and really efficiently, and then sort of take good notes on the soul level as to, well, what are the fruits, what are the results, and then what do I want to do about that in my life? And that whole process is Kabbalah and Hermetics and all these esoteric sciences that we're studying. So
I think that's why I'm a Kabbalah, like, I just love it. Like, I love it.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm talking to a Kabbalah teacher, so I'm totally on the same page with that. It's, I think some of the other questions we came up here, we've already really touched on a lot of these things. And I want to ask you in general, it's like, let's sort of, I try and do this toward the end of these episodes, and we're getting toward the last, 5 or 10 minutes of our time here tonight. So how do you see productivity in the world? Like, how do you see most people accomplishing things, valuing things, making meanings, and getting things done in the world? And like, what is that process? Like, pull focus, bigger picture. What's happening in the world as people make their decisions?
Man,
I know it's a change of focus.
That's a big question. Like, what's happening in the world with people and productivity and systems? And I think the ego is overhauling all of it. I think it's being run on feelings, thoughts, emotions, and subconscious programs, as opposed to deeper, meaningful, purposeful communication, love, virtues, and all of that shows up. And like, it can be sexy. I think the personal development and personal growth world has done a good job with their marketing to draw people in to do more things. But I think it's just a rat race in many of the ways. Like, it almost pries on our weaknesses as opposed to extracts our strengths. It says, like, I know you're not going to be productive. I know you're not going to use this system. So I'll give you a system I know you're not going to use, and you can regurgitate and you can get buzzed up and go find the next thing to kind of propel you into an adrenaline rush that you're going to go accomplish something else. And I think that's what it kind of is. It's like these adrenaline rush promises that keep people going towards a promise for their purpose. But the truth is, people haven't gotten quiet enough to know enough about themselves to even see the spark that's driving them in a certain direction. So I think that's where it gets really messy. And I think I used to just use that adrenaline better than everyone else. I use that adrenaline to like run to the to the wall that I ran into the wall faster so I could find a new wall and move into a new direction, as opposed to somebody who's like, sits around and waits. I didn't do that. I would take action, but it wasn't action with purpose. It wasn't action from a deeper level. It was like the rest of the world telling me how I should run. And then I just ran until I found the one that actually worked for me. So I think that's what's happening in a, microcosm, macrocosm to people. And I think a lot of people are chasing the light. And I think because they've been marketed to, it's like when some of these things show up for them, they're like, well, now the marketing's the problem, right? you find the light, and then it's like, but no, they're just marketing to me because I'm weak. And it's like, no, man, they're marketing to you because you're strong and they believe the light's within you. And if we pull it out of you, like you are going to be able to do a lot with it. Not like for our sake, the guides or the people helping you. It's for your sake. And I think that's the biggest difference, where we don't even know we're being dubbed in many of these ways. And we're adrenaline junkies for the fix of progress.
It's kind of a scathing indictment of a lot of New Age seminars that you just made out there. I hope we didn't piss too many people off.
And I'm so blessed that I didn't really get like that beat up by this stuff. And I'm really happy. There was always a healthy level of like skepticism, but when I kept meeting new people from our community and other community, it was like there just got realer and realer of the things that I actually wanted more of in this life, not less of. I didn't want more attachments. I didn't want more substances. I didn't want more false relationships. And I didn't find that for myself. I didn't find that. I'm sure there's people that have gone through the school and they think they found something different, but for myself, that wasn't the truth at all.
Interesting. That's cool. Yeah. So when we're looking at like how people accomplish things and looking at people just sort of bouncing from one thing to another, or that's really within the world of accomplishing progression through systems or seminars or self-help teachers or coaches or that sort of thing. And also like how a lot of that operates on programs as well, just putting in a different program. It's like, well, you were born with this program, or you grew up with this program that kind of, it was pretty crappy. And then, we're going to give you a different program that's better, but it's not really going to change all that much because it's still another program.
Right.
It's still another subconscious operating system that we're going to try and install for you. And then we're going to repattern the way you live, and hopefully it's better. You and I can kind of laugh about that because it's ridiculous when you have access to the light.
Sure.
When you really have that higher light that comes with initiation, we're like, of course that's ridiculous. But then there's so many people out there where that's all they know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what they have. And of course, when all you have is what's in front of you, you will cling to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's better than what you grew up with. It's like the person who you mentioned competitive running. It's like, and I have no idea your history on this, but like, let's say you were an alcoholic and a cigarette smoker, but then you became a competitive runner. I don't know if that's your history at all, but let's say that's somebody who's watching tonight's history, right?
Yeah.
And it's like being a competitive runner is a way better program than being an alcoholic and smoking cigarettes in terms of like objectively, medically, health-wise. If you go run 10 miles a day, that's way better for you than getting drunk every night, smoking a pack a day. No one's going to doubt that, right?
Right.
But what about your soul and your spirit and your eternal self? Does it really actually love the new program of being a runner? Or is it just another program? And it's like, whoa. Don't question that, buddy.
Yeah.
Because it's all I have. It's all I have. This is how I recovered. And you don't know what I've been through, so don't touch that. It's like, okay, I hear you. And then when you start doing this work, there's more.
Absolutely.
And now maybe you're still going to choose to still be a runner. Or maybe not. I don't know. Or whatever it is that you do in your life. But you can keep those things if they really are joy for you.
Totally.
There's things that I did when I was a child or a teenager in my early 20s before I got initiated that I still do now. And some of those things I just kept on doing after I was initiated. And other things I sort of pulled back from and was like, well, does that really serve me? I'm not I'm not sure. And then I realized, no, I was missing something without that. So I need to go back and get back into that thing that I was doing. Maybe that was, painting, or maybe that was singing, or maybe that was, rowing. Like I used to row crew in high school. And then many, many years later, after not doing it for a long time, like I bought a rowing machine and was like, I need this in my life, So there's little things that we do that maybe we're programs. And then when we have more light, we reevaluate them and they're no longer programs. That I see that happen all the time to people.
All the time. Yeah. And I would definitely say, like, I reclaimed like lots of things that brought me joy, especially in my first time through Kabbalah, like just all these things that I used to do in the past, like music, nature, somewhat of running or hiking, a lot of them did bring me joy. They were, because there's a fine line between that. Like I definitely was the person that used running as probably some form of like control and addiction, because I could pour all kinds of things into it. And it's hard to, it's definitely one of those things that does walk the fine line when you start to know competitive people in general. They like transfer addiction from one area to the other, or competition from one area to the other. I really kind of get that. But yeah, it does bring back like the things that just kind of like fill you up. And music was one of them for me that really started to come back when I got, because you realize so many of these things that like we do as children. Now I have a child and I get to watch her explore the world. It's like, I kind of re-explore those, like coloring and drawing and stuff. And regardless of my artistic abilities, like it was fun. I loved it. So now I do it more, and I'm like, wow, there's something there. So I do more of it. And it helps reconnect to like even that inner child essence of when life was a little bit simpler. And like, that's a nice perspective to have. She gives me that as a parent. It's really nice to see that and have a creative outlet. And, kind of like, it's funny, this tree, you started a podcast. My wife and I started the Spiritually Initiated Parenting podcast. And I found like, that's a really creative way to explore my own life through talk and through that experience. And you've probably like seen how just talking and communicating with another individual, like your progression, like you have a mirror to understand it even better, to be more efficient. So for me, I've seen help in that too. So it's really been cool.
Yeah. Having something like this has been amazing, to also get to connect with so many people and then share that. And maybe we only have, 15, 20, 30 people watching it live, but then, within a month, usually there's several hundred people who have seen this, who otherwise we couldn't have had this conversation in a month with 300 people.
It's very true. Yeah.
There's like, I can't talk to 300 people a month, one-on-one like this at their convenience and my convenience. So it's kind of cool to be able to express this. I want to ask you one more question before we sign off. What do you see in the future for humanity in terms of how people approach their lives and their decisions? Like where do you see us going as a human race?
See us
you can
going
answer that any way you like.
Okay. Well, I mean, what I'm hopeful for is, in my own life, I think there's lots of people that deep down want to know themselves on a greater spiritual level. And what I want to see is us understanding that place, and that, that's a different way to look at somebody, not just like they are God and there's God within each one, but to understand like they are looking for more. And when we kind of see that, we approach people in a different way, because that person who's looking for more might be a construction worker, they might be a carpenter, they might be a marketing director, they might be a healer already. They come in different forms, but it comes out through everyday people. And through my practice, I get to work with such an array of everyday people that I think it helps me stay connected to what is possible. And there's lots of people that are looking for more, and they're wearing an outfit that may be unsuspecting. So for me, I think we're going to continue to help the world continue to grow from a place of authenticity, when we can start to see that they come in all shapes and sizes. And speaking to those people, I really think that's a missing piece. Like, I wouldn't have jumped into this spiritual world had it not been reached out in a certain way through a certain person. And that's important. There's something important about that for each and every one of us. who does this work. And it's not necessarily like we got to go find a new population of people that are, quote, into this. It's like we just need to like start to find and be quiet in the opportunities that are showing up to present it to the people already around you, because that's all I've really done. And that's why we, you know, in Pennsylvania, we've had this success, is because I think I've been able to do that and connect with the everyday person who's already in front of me. Because I look at each one of those opportunities as a way to help influence people in a good way, not for my agenda, but to just help open a door for them. So I think we can go in a continued good place if we slow down a little bit. You know, if we don't try to run in every direction to change everything in the moment, because that creates a lot of fire and chaos, I feel like. And I say that because I did it. And I did it for years. And even if I was productive in that way, it's not what I really wanted to be. It's not who I really was. And it did not bring me the fruits that I wanted. So I think if we can get down to starting to see the essence of everyone around us, is that they are really looking for that. And even if and there's a way to communicate that, even without speaking, you know, even without speaking. So
cool. Thank you. Well, we're a little bit over our time here, so we're going to sign off for this evening. Awesome. I really appreciate your insights and your sharing, and I'm definitely going to go watch this episode again myself afterwards to kind of recap and see what I missed. Because when I'm alive, like sometimes I'm there and I'm hearing it, and then there's little things that I miss. So I like to go back and watch these again also. So I hope that all of our viewers do that as well. Again, this podcast is called Unveiling. If you like this, please share it with your friends on YouTube or Facebook. Either way, leave a comment, like it, and just get the word out. So thank you all. My name is Jordan Bain. This is Dr. Bill Moss, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next week for more amazing information. Take care, everyone.